Hi everyone, my name is Josefa and I'm here to present my final project presentation on IoT, and the topic for my project is weather monitoring system. So as you all know, weather changes according to the season and it's good to keep a track of weather by knowing the temperature for the particular day before going out. With our own weather station we can keep a track of past data and even predict the future weather based on that, which we can do once we can collect the data. And by integrating the sensor with IoT, we can view the data from anywhere just by few clicks. So the design for my project consists of four major parts. First we connect our weather sensor to the Raspberry Pi. Then we read the data from the sensor on our Raspberry Pi, and once we get the data, we can store it in an SQLite local database. And after storing the database, we can create a Flask web server so that we can view the data in real time. So here is the final look of my hardware, and I just connected the sensor to the Raspberry Pi using the GPIO pins. Coming to the software part, first we install few basic libraries for the project. So Python, SMBus, and I2C tools is mostly uh, used to get the data from the sensor, and SQLite 3 is used uh, for to create, log, and store the data in our database, and Python Flask is used to create a basic web app to view the data on the internet. So here is the code to create to get to read the data and create a local database. So we just created a database named ptdata.db, and we just log the data periodically at every 3 seconds. So over here we have just created a connection and cursor, and then we create a simple table consisting of timestamp, temperature, and pressure values using this code. After creating the table, we can get the data. We can read the data using this code, and we can return the value for temperature and pressure. Once we have the data, we need to log the data into the database, into the table that we have created. So from this function we get the values of temperature and pressure and store it using this code as as the values for temperature and pressure, and for time we have just use this code. uh, Once we log the data, we can also double check if the database is coming into the table. Using this function we can view the data on the terminal window, and then we have just simply put a true loop so that it runs every 3 seconds, and it doesn't stop, so that we can store the database continuously. After creating a database successfully, we have created another Python script where we have created a database where we can store the values from the database to our web server. So first we create an app named Flask name, then we get the data from our database and the values of time, temperature, and pressure. So once we have the values, we created our app and log the values for time, temperature, and pressure. uh, and we also created a .html file or template to view the data along with .css file. And then finally we run our app uh, so that we can view the data on our web server. So here, as we can see, is a few results. of the project. So as we can see, it's logging temperature and pressure, and then it's also showing us the content of the database. So it's clearly, as you can see, it's showing the date time, temperature and pressure values, and it increases every 3 seconds with a new value, storing along with the previous values. Also, when we run the other .py file where we created our Flask web server, we can see that it's clearly running, and we can view our results on this IP address, and more we will see on the demo file, on the video which I'll play after this. Thank you. So this is my final demo, and over here, as we can see, I have the Raspberry Pi which is connected to the weather sensor, and now I'll show you guys the code. So first we'll run the first script which will load and read the data and store the data in the database. So I've set the database to record a value every 3 seconds. As you can see, every 3 seconds the database is filling up with time, temperature and pressure, and I kept the database running so that it records values continuously. After that, I'm gonna run the other code which is gonna take the values from the database and store it on a web server. So as we can see over here, it says the Flask app is loading, and we have the available IP address over here. When we open the URL, we can see the values of temperature and pressure, and it also says when was the last reading recorded, and once you hit the refresh button, it's gonna come up with the latest value recorded. And that is my final IoT project demo.